So I finished watching the 7th installment of Star Wars Visions Volume 2, the 7th installment being the Bandits of Golak. So this installment, is written and directed by Ishan Shukla. It's an Indian name and I do apologize for butchering it, but the animator, 88 Pictures, is much easier to say for me who does not have a good grasp of Indian names. But hopefully I did put the name on the screen so that you guys can at least see what I was saying there. But going to begin with, this definitely, of the ones I've watched so far, definitely felt the most so far connected to the regular Star Wars universe. Probably did help that the animation style was pretty much inspired by how Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars The Bad Batch have been animated. I mean, sure, there are some differences in coloration, but like the techniques almost appear to be not that dissimilar. So this literally felt like it could have been like one of the one-off episodes of the Clone Wars, or even a episode of the Bad Batch in terms of animation. And so that probably did contribute it as well. But also by having set a lot of the stuff as, like literally, the line at the very end is, may the force be with you. Like sure, we get that in other sets, but in other installments, but this one's the one that felt the most like it's given in other Star Wars properties. Probably that's because that's the direction the creator wanted to take. From what I do understand, that is what the director wanted to do. So, should probably talk a little bit about the story itself. This story is set during the Galactic Civil War. I mean, you got a force-sensitive girl, her name is Rani, and then her brother Charuk, I hope I'm pronouncing both of those correctly, are basically hiding from the Empire, kind of. More of they're trying to get someplace safe, and it's implied that their father, they don't have their father anymore, and it's kind of implied that the Empire is responsible, but it's not spelled out. And that's actually probably the biggest thing with a lot of the elements of the episode. A lot of the stuff are strongly implied, but not as much of it is told to us. Now, that can be a very much a fine thing to do, especially in this case, because the context clues are very strong. If this was in one of the other episodes, installments, where things were a bit more disconnected, then sure. But since this one felt a lot more connected to the regular Star Wars universe, I think we can piece those pieces together. The bandits who attacked the train that they were traveling on are rebels fighting the Empire. That the Empire is responsible for the father's death. Like, we can make those assumptions safely because of how connected this one feels. And at the end of the episode, an Inquisitor confronts them, and they're saved because the place they decided to take refuge, well, the person who owned it, controlled it, supervised it, whatever, turned out to be a Jedi survivor, and she defeats the Inquisitor. And from some things I've learned, that the designs of the Inquisitor was taken from, I believe, Hindu mythology, especially with how sometimes demons are portrayed in the art, I think. Again, I'm not the most familiar with Indian culture, so it's hard to say, but like, I definitely could see the stuff I think that what I'm trying to say here is the stuff I'm familiar with as an American, I did pick up on the stuff, like things like, there were certain characters like I felt like were more inspired by how Sikhs dress than regular Indians. Things like that for background characters too, but also some characters are clearly Indian inspired, some not so, some more in India's ethnic minorities like Sikhs, like all that stuff I do pick up on. But again, I don't know how much of that was intentional, but I do feel like they wanted to create a picture of India in the Star Wars universe, being that this is by an Indian creator and animation studio, so it does very much make sense to me. But going back, at the very end of the episode, the Order 66 survivor takes Ronnie to a refuge with other Force sensitives, and Chera gives Ronnie a lollipop that's in the shape of a traditional Indian sweet. I'm never going to try to pronounce it. And then they've had this entire time with them their father's flute, and Ronnie leaves that with Charok to remember her by as well. So I really do like that there. So they have a way of kind of remembering each other. So things are not totally, ending on a sad note. But it is a sad note, but it's also a hopeful note because Charok leaves playing the flute right after he tells his sister, "May the Force be with her." The first time the Force was actually spoken, meaning he knew what the powers that she had. Oh, another thing too, one of the character models on the train, yeah, he looked very familiar from Star Wars: The Clone Wars, like the Jedi who was always walking with a cane and had like a pale white blade. I forget his name, but Ahsoka had the whole story arc with him. I forget the exact arc, but come on, like they choose that on purpose to make us think that was going to be the Jedi that was going to save the day? Because I think they did. But you know what? I really much did enjoy this episode. Well, I have talked about other ones being my favorite. Like, I really, really enjoyed the Spy Dancer and really all of them to a certain extent. Even I'm Your Mother, where I mentioned I thought the plot was too predictable. All of them have been good. But this one, I felt the most comfortable watching. And I think that's because they told a story in the Star Wars universe, but simply with an Indian twist. Like, all the other ones, you can tell, they're Star Wars, but they're like, you feel like the stories that will be told in Star Wars, not necessarily a story from Star Wars. Does that make sense? And this felt like a story from Star Wars. And I think that greatly changes how I'm viewing the story and even how I'm talking about it. But those are just my thoughts on this. I would love to hear yours in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to like, upvote, and share the video. Also consider subscribing and following the channel if you haven't done so yet, and to ring that bell on YouTube to get notified of when new videos release. The link tree in the description links to all my social media. Check it out if you are interested, and once again, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.